This is Dr. Charles Parker, and you're listening to Core Brain Journal. It's a place where I connect both fresh discoveries and interesting different perspectives from advanced mind science with the realities of real people and everyday life down on Main Street.
Well, welcome aboard, folks. Dr. Charles Parker here one more time, and we have an interesting guest that's going to take us into different language patterns. You know, this is going to be something that a lot of you have not heard about before, and Renee Brent is going to come in and tell us about different forms of hypnotherapy. She's going to use some new words about hypnotherapy and some different conceptualizations, and we're going to ask her about that in just a moment. Thanks for joining us, Renee. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
So what we're going to do first of all is just talk a little bit about our sponsors and introduce you to the concept that you listeners already know how much we love the reality of pure data here at CBJ. And today we welcome our clinical friend and our new sponsor partner, Direct Health Access Laboratory. They set a new standard for methylation, cryptopyrrole, and copper challenges that directly affect brain function. And remember this, if they can serve professionals in Nigeria, they can certainly help you out there in Fargo. Stay tuned, more later. And then you also know how much we appreciate detailed improvements of mind care any way they come up. Today we're pleased to welcome another sponsor, which is just a very cool group here in Norfolk, a deep interest in fresh options to address the complexity of, get this, adolescent treatment failure nationally and internationally. They are built TRICARE friendly. The Barry Robinson Center here in beautiful downtown Norfolk provides a holistic environment that sets children, teens, and here's where the big part is, families on the path to healing together. From personal experience, I know their work with families we've shared. It's a truly different residential experience. More in a moment. So moving on, let's talk about Renee and introduce her. She is, now here you go. This is where we get into these words. She's a certified clinical and transpersonal hypnotherapist. She's the director and instructor of the Orlando, Florida externship program for the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy. A couple new words we're going to talk about in a second. Renee is passionate. I know she is because I talked to her offline before. She's going to roll your socks up and down. She's passionate about teaching because she knows the power of this work that she's doing, both personally and professionally, the importance of training qualified hypnotherapy practitioners. She's been an RN, so she brings a medical dimension for over 25 years. She's worked in the hardcore street life of ICU, trauma, ER, and in recovery rooms. And this practice that she's now in is a natural transition to pursue a career as a hypnotherapist coming from a medical background. In her experience, she was inspired by the powerful mind-body connection and how self-awareness and reframing negative thoughts helps us heal both emotionally and physically. And by the way, folks, over at Core Brain Journal, if you're just listening to this in your car, we have a whole page on mindset, getting the mindset correctly. And I've already told Renee she's going to be invited to be on that page. We'll put her right up there so you can catch her there as well. She's going to be episode 145 when it's published. So she's also an author and speaker. Her newest book, get this is going to be, hang on, fasten your seatbelt, How Big is Your Butt? And she's going to tell us about that. It helps her readers release blocks and move forward in their lives. She's frequently asked to speak to groups about how to use the power of their own minds to practice happy. So more in a moment about that. So welcome aboard, Renee. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing. Get us started in this personal narrative, who you are, and then we'll talk more about these words and what you're actually doing. Appreciate it.
Certainly. So I am a hypnotherapist, a clinical hypnotherapist, which means that I help the mind body. As a nurse, you mentioned in the ER, ICU, trauma, I used to think when I first began as a young nurse that how our body felt affected our mind. Then I started to learn very quickly that how we feel emotionally and how our thoughts are affect our body. So it's a natural transition for me to become a clinical hypnotherapist. What does that mean? Hypnotherapy is just bypassing the 5% of the conscious mind, getting to that boss, which is the subconscious mind, 95%, which holds our emotions, our memories, our past, our beliefs about ourselves that affect us every day. And if you don't know how to get into that subconscious mind, that 95% that's challenging us every day, that's our perception of the world, if you don't know how to do it, then someone else is driving your car. And that doesn't feel very safe. So what I do is really help people get into the driver's seat, understanding how they're perceiving their world, how their past is affecting that. And when you do that and you gain clarity of that, life begins to change. Because when you can trust yourself, when you feel safe to handle whatever comes your way, and you understand how things are being distorted, and you can change that, then you become very free. Life becomes very peace. Your heart gets quiet, your mind gets still. And that's healing, true healing.
So you're running on your own program versus somebody else's. So the childhood things that have happened, they're just not, they're gone. You're gonna get past them and deal with the reality of everyday life instead of whatever happened in the past.
Yes, and I help people understand that not only are they dealing with the adult person that's dealing with the challenges of a job or a end of a marriage, or a child with disabilities or something, but you're also dealing with that inner child. We all have 3 ego states. There's a chapter in my book about that, managing the ego states, because breaking that ego code. We have inner child, inner critic, and adult ego. So you have the adult there that's dealing with the issue, but you're also carrying that 5 or 6-year-old who is left with the false belief, maybe not worthy, not lovable, not important. And when you're dealing with that one who's also being triggered at the same time, sometimes you have a reaction you don't understand. So when you connect to that inner child, when you connect to those false beliefs and start to change them, then you gain awareness, because every false belief we have changes our distortion of the world. If somebody is filtering through a false belief of ugly, let's say, and someone says your eyes are so beautiful, it goes through that filter, and she or he may hear, they're only saying that because the rest of me is hideous. It changes how we hear the world. It changes the messages we're getting. So it's very, very important to understand your false beliefs and please know that you can change that. That's what I help people do in hypnotherapy.
Well, that example, Renee, sorry for interrupting you. I was interested in the example that you gave. So is that example a combination of the inner critic and the helpless child? It sounded like that was out of balance in both ways. The example that you just gave.
I get people.
Oh, we broke up just a little bit there. Say that last thing again. You catch people what?
So I help people understand where false beliefs come from and in their child. But the common one I get really is unworthy, unlovable, and alone. Alone. If we're not connected to something outside of ourselves, it becomes a very scary world. So those are the common ones. But I help people understand that when you're younger than 10, that conscious and subconscious mind is wide open, and everything that is said or done, not intentionally even, the perception of the child is encoded as truth. So if you had a teacher that year kept helping you, telling you were stupid, sit down, laughing at you, you may be left with that belief that you're stupid. And now everything, you carry that pattern with you, and everything is filtered through that stupid. So if a boss tells you, you know what, I really need you to rework this paragraph of that report, it's going through that stupid filter, and it's changing your perception and your reaction. And if you don't understand why you react in a certain way, you better believe it's coming from the echo of the past.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, we see that all the time. And you're really reprogramming people and using these different hypnotherapeutic techniques to help that person get reprogrammed. Now, take a moment, because this is one that a lot of our guests don't know about. And I need personal clarification on this myself. I know a little bit about transpersonal. I certainly know what interpersonal is, but I don't know how it applies to your techniques of what you do with other human beings in the office. So what is transpersonal hypnotherapy? What happens with that?
So in transpersonal hypnotherapy, and you know this as well, and I know your listeners are educated, they've been listening to you, so you've done a great job educating them. Most of us live on the surface. It's safer. We're human beings. We're meant to survive. So we live in our safe zone, and that's surface. And underneath, underneath that, the trans part is getting underneath that and really seeing what's the deeper levels are. And yeah, and interpersonal, of course, is relationships. And I'd like to say that there's younger than 10, there's a event, an ISE, an event that causes us with these beliefs, but they're really relationships. It's relationships and recurring exposure to these false beliefs that steer us there. So in the work that I do, I, as a hypnotherapist, don't tell people how to think or feel. When you go into the state of hypnosis, which is only a change in a brainwave, when you go in that state and you have someone guide you through protocol where you find your own answers, where you go into a memory and you heal that with love and acceptance and forgiveness, and let that little boy or girl know that you're valuable, that you're loved, that you're smart. When they do that within in the hypnotic state and they come up with their own answers, it's life-changing. It's healing. They disconnect from that and they change that echo. And then I do a beautiful thing in the memories where they grow up the child, infusing the state of peace or calm, whatever their core state is. And it's remarkable when they open their eyes, the tears, and they feel hope and they feel lighter. My clients always tell me they feel lighter. They had no idea how carrying this with them, dragging this with them every day was such a heavy load.
I got two questions.
Yeah.
One is, you zoomed by one term that I'm unfamiliar with, and I know our audience is unfamiliar with.
Okay.
ISE. What's an ISE?
It's the initial sensitizing event.
Initial sensitizing event, which it's the thing that kicked you off. It's relative trauma or something like that.
Yes, yeah. It's something. And it really is not just one exposure. Sometimes it can be a death, I have people who remember when their mom died and the father came in and told them. That's an ISE. That's something people remember. But it's usually a relationship. It's a continued exposure. A teacher, an uncle, a father, a mother, a grandmother, whatever's happening. But younger than 10, because you're wide open. And so it's really important how we talk and expose children to the words that we say.
So what you're looking at there is the transformative quality of that ISE that actually sent them down the path.
Absolutely.
Now, the question is, a lot of us remember where we were when we heard JFK was shot. Okay, I remember it very well. I don't know if you look like you're much younger than I am. But anyway, the bottom line is that wasn't necessarily transformative, however, because it was just a shock, but it didn't change the way. And one of the things you've said twice now that our audience really needs to pay attention to, if we didn't get it, is the repetitive nature of the trauma and getting reprogrammed on the constant repetition of that misperceived reality, so that you actually get programmed in a certain direction, and that reality becomes your interpersonal interpersonal reality.
Absolutely. Now everything is based off that, and we set patterns up. And if you believe in your heart that you're not worthy, you're going to bring in people that are going to prove that to you, or you're going to bring in situations, or you're going to self-sabotage. Because if you don't think you're worthy and deserving of a life where you feel loved and valued and smart, you kind of create that subconsciously. And so it's very, very important to understand the echo and what you're filtering through every day. So for instance, if someone comes into me as a clinical hypnotherapist and has unexplained back pain, shoulder pain, headaches that no one can find a medical occurrence for, they'll come to me and I ask them, so, having this chronic headache makes you believe that you are weak, not good enough. I help them see what they're filtering through, the false beliefs and the emotions. And in my world, how someone feels about an illness is usually what caused it in the first place. So if you grew up with this false belief of not good enough, not valued, weak, sad, angry, those chemicals, because I'm a science geek. So every thought we have sends a chemical in our body that validates the thought. And now we have, oh yeah, I'm angry. And by the way, X, Y, and Z. And now we're in a mind to melt merry-go-round full of chemicals that are very toxic to the body. And if you do that for 20, 30 years, even 10 years, it affects the physicality of our body. And that's where clinical hypnotherapy comes in, because we get to the cause of feeling weak or not lovable, and you change that, and you change the chemistry of the body and you change symptoms. I see people do it all the time. Release symptoms of pain or chronic digestive issues based on the chemistry of false beliefs.
So then, Renee, your concept, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just learning this with you, of transpersonal hypnotherapy is that you're going deep into what's the underlying, what some of our guests have called systems 2 thinking. System 2 thinking deals with the complexity of who you are as a human being, as opposed to everyday life systems 1, the reptilian thinking. Okay, hey, I'm shocked, I'm gone, I'll talk to you later. I'm not going to think about this. But transpersonal takes you down into, I'm going to think about all the complexity of this whole thing and rework it in this new perceptive state, this new ability to see what's actually going on.
Absolutely. When you're in that reptilian brain, when you're in fight or flight and survival, you're in called a beta wave, or if you're in stress, a high beta wave. You're very, very human. And in that state, there's not really change happening in the deep transpersonal level. So hypnosis is only a change in that brainwave. So you go from a conscious state to a subconscious state, which is a alpha brainwave or a theta. When you're in that state, now hypnosis doesn't put you to sleep, it wakes you up. And when you're in that state, now you can remember. The subconscious mind holds all of that for us, but we're not taught how to go in and relieve it and release it and be aware of it. So hypnotherapy is just a protocol. It's just a tool to be able to get in there. I tell people that I'm a professional garage door opener. I help them, I open the garage, but they have to go in. I hold the flashlight, but they're the ones who have to decide what they want to keep, what they want to let go, and what they want to fix. Sometimes we get in the deep corners. Sometimes we stay in the main area. And sometimes we stay out in the garage and in the driveway and just talk. I never push somebody. We don't push. We go at their level. I never lead. I only follow. So it's just about getting in there and seeing what's there and what you want to keep. Make sense?
See if they can get in the car and drive it out of the garage.
Yeah, because you know how good it feels when you clean your garage, you swept, you can pull the car in. You're not afraid to go in, or in that shed in the backyard, you're not afraid to open the door because you know what to expect. You're in control. You're not waiting for a surprise to shoot out at you. And that is safety. And when you can trust that, when you feel safe, we're all geared to survival. When you feel safe in every aspect of your life, man, life just frees. You just sleep better, you eat better, you feel better, you connect better to the people you love in your life.
You're out of the program. You're off that track. That's a good thing. So now let me ask you this now. Interpersonal hypnotherapy. What I understand, of course, what the word means in a sense, but how does it actually apply when how is that different than hypnotherapy? How does interpersonal hypnotherapy differ from plain old hypnotherapy? What's going on there?
It's all basically the same. Clinical hypnotherapy is really about clinical physicality. Interpersonal is more about relationships.
Oh, I got you.
If somebody comes into me and I get a lot of people who I tend to get a lot of people who have anxiety disorder or a lot of anxiety and addiction. And when we talk about how that's affecting their relationships and how it's affecting their life. And that's really what interpersonal is about. It's really getting there. But it's also about getting to cause. It's very hard to stay clean and sober if you believe you're worthless and not valuable, because it's churning underneath. And the mind, the subconscious mind, that 95% the boss, wants to move you away from pain to pleasure. And if the only way you know to do that is to smoke, drink, porn, whatever it is, alcohol, that's what you're going to do. So when you get and you clear those underlying current of that false belief, you change the echo, it's much easier to stay safe, feel safe, release anxiety, release addictive, maladaptive behaviors, and move forward in a new way. But you got to get back to those old relationships. If you think that you've consciously handled your relationship with your father or your mother or your grandmother, if you haven't done it subconsciously, really in the heart, then it could be affecting your daily life.
So you get past that programming and you get into reality as it is, as opposed to the way you're misperceiving that it is.
Yeah.
Based on
right. So for instance, if somebody comes into me and they're really struggling, they don't know why. I had a woman, for instance, who was like 45. She was had everything going for her. Children were healthy. She had a lot of money. She had a beautiful relationship with her husband, but she woke up every morning. She goes, I don't know why I'm not happy. I should be happy, but I live in fear that I'm going to lose it all and I'm not happy. I said, okay, so let's do a regression to memory. So I amplified this feeling of her not feeling lovable, valued, deserving, feeling alone in the midst of all this going around for her. And sadness and hurt and fear. And we amped it up in hypnosis, and I bridged her to the first time she ever felt that. She landed in a memory of third grade. She's standing outside the door of her teacher, go into the room. Her best friends that day decided that she wasn't part of the group, and they were mean to her. In that moment, and from there, she grabbed onto the belief, somehow I'm not good enough, I'm not deserving, I'm not part of, I'm alone. And she's held that echo ever since. When she healed that memory, she healed that third grader with love and acceptance, forgiveness of herself, of others, and we grew her up and disconnected her from that. Then her life, she said, I don't know what's going on, Renee, but I wake up every morning now and I feel calmer, I feel happier. I know that I deserve this. And she could connect to those people in a new way. And that's the power of this work, really.
So there are a couple of questions I want to ask you, and I'll tell you what they're going to be, and then we'll take a little break. I'm going to sort of prepare you in advance here, okay? Mm-hmm. So the first question I have, they're in a way related. First of all, the narrative of how you got into it is always interesting, of how a person, bumped against their own personal reality and how they then sought some different answers. That's the one thing, sort of your own personal take on how you got to be into this. And then the second one is, if you could think of a meaningful, challenging experience that changed the way, even when you were in the practice, that said, I've got to change what I'm doing here. This was educational to me. I was not prepared for this, but this particular thing has changed the way I'm going to practice. So if you could get those two things, well, then those transformative moments is what life is all about, are what life is all about. So we'll come back, if that's okay with you. We'll talk about that Perfect. In just a moment. Right. All right, so we'll take a break.
Well, folks, you know as well as I do that psychiatric treatment failure, especially after multiple medication trials and those very, very brief hospitalizations, may prove insufficient to deal at home with the complexity of troubled children and those adolescents from 6 to 17 years old. Improved care, those next mandatory steps, should include a more comprehensive approach to address those multiple levels of challenges, from family to peers to school, diagnostically from defiance to depression, on every level for families, including military families internationally. The Barry Robinson Center's 32-acre open college-like campus in Norfolk, Virginia, provides safety and security and clean, comfortable living. How do we know? We refer folks over there all the time, strongly endorse what they're doing. So for further information, an informed interview, connect at this page, barryrobinson.org/core. Well, you folks already know that here at Core Brain Journal, we're on a mission to introduce you to resources that make significant contributions to the investigation of those predictable mind science applications. Our colleagues at DHA Lab Group provide a real difference with treatment options for people at every level, from first awareness of mind problems to those frustrating times when even well-informed treatment becomes surprisingly unpredictable. For my entire professional life, from psychoanalysis to brain scans, I've searched for, yes, improved predictability. The good news for all of us, from professionals to patients, remarkably effective research offers useful, cost-effective, organic options far beyond guesswork with psychiatric medications alone. DHA lab tests measure unbalanced biomedical details through easily available testing, now available globally for a variety of molecular answers from, for example, methylation, copper, and cryptopyrrole challenges. Check in for more details at dhalab.com core. That's dhalab.com/core.
Well, welcome back, folks. Here we are. We're going to talk to Renee about who she is. Hey, we said we were going to ask her that question. We want to know a little bit about what happened to her that took her into this deep dive. I mean, she's there in the emergency room dealing with blood, sweat, babies coming out, heart attacks, brain injury, the whole thing. And then she goes over into this whole other medium. Tell us a little bit, Renee, about how you got there.
Well, first of all, I loved all that, and I loved being a nurse, and I loved being there. But it was interesting. To begin with, had two small children 18 months apart when I was a young mother, and I wanted a third baby, and I wasn't getting pregnant. And I'm divorced now. My ex-husband said, you know what, I think you should go away for a week, because I was driving him and everybody else crazy. So he sent me to a spa. I went in Miami. I live in Florida. And there happened to be a hypnotherapist there. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but he's paying, so I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, and this hypnotherapist in that moment helped me understand something very important that I use to this day with my clients. The subconscious mind will never let you be something you disagree with. And in my heart, I understood that I didn't think I would be as good a mother to the third as I was the first two. And I cleared that in that week that I was there. And I did another one with visualization and meditation. And I got pregnant the next month. And I have
Really?
my son is 20.
No, that's interesting.
And I knew the power of the work, but I'd forgotten about it. And I went on with my life doing nursing. And I got divorced after 20 years of marriage. And it sent me for a loop. I was a little bit lost. And I grew up with an alcoholic mother, and I didn't understand how that affected me. And I used to hide in a closet in my life to just try to keep myself safe. I knew, and I used to say to myself, oh my gosh, it's them, it's not me, and just try to keep myself safe. And during my divorce, I found myself in the closet, the same thing. And I said, it's not me, it's him. It's not me, it's him. And then I understood in that moment, my pain that I was feeling was not even about the divorce. It was about the false beliefs that this was all about my childhood wounds. So when I healed my childhood wounds, and I remembered hypnotherapy, and I used hypnotherapy to help me clear that, then I could deal with just the effects, the adult having a divorce. And I was very mature and moved past the hurt, but I had to heal the childhood wounds. And that's when I understood the value of that. And I went to hypnotherapy school, and I did a lot of my own work, because a hypnotherapist can't, and you know this as a therapist, as a psychiatrist, you can't help someone if you're dealing with the same issue. You can only take someone as far as you are. So I've done a lot of my own work, a lot of my own awareness. So there's very little that someone across the couch can tell me that I haven't experienced myself. And that brings commonality, and I get excited for them because I know what's on the other side of that healing, because I've been there myself. So I went to hypnotherapy school, and I haven't looked back. It's the best decision I ever made.
Well, and you could see where they could go. It's because you have been there. You could see the opportunity, and then it became, it was real for you as opposed to being unreal.
Absolutely. And the healing is real, and it's permanent, and it's just, when you open your heart and trust yourself and feel that joy, because the closed heart you don't cry all your tears, but you don't laugh all your laughter. And when you open your heart and trust yourself, that's where true joy lives. And I love having a front row seat to that with my clients. Absolutely.
What a picture. All right. Now this other question, because I'm always curious about how you grow from your own practice.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people say, okay, she's a very real person. I love this conversation. She's telling us a lot about some very intimate and important things, developmental opportunities in her life. But then I wonder about, because I could sit here, obviously you're not interviewing me, but I could tell you some transformational moments I've had where I thought I knew what I was doing and found out that I didn't.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I've got to rethink this whole game plan. So do you have anything like that does occur to you that might be instructive for us as we're thinking about undertaking some kind of career change, developmental opportunity, change in our lives, how we could perhaps experience it from a different level of perception?
Certainly. So I moved into this, and in a very short time, I found a lot of success in what I do. And I think it comes from my passion and my experience. And I was moving into, for some reason, I found a lot of businessmen in my office, and I was helping. 60% of my clients are men. They like the logic of the work. I'm pretty straightforward. And I found myself going into a business model, helping mindset for companies, and I love doing that. And I was kind of gearing everything towards that. And all of a sudden, I started having a lot of people struggling with addiction come into my office. And I was like, what's this about? And up until that point, I wasn't really looking at my own past with my family. My mother was an alcoholic. I lost 2 siblings and a nephew from alcohol and drug addiction, and I
Mm.
wasn't really looking at it. And they were coming to me to help me understand that that's what I needed to do. That's where my story was. That's what I understood, because I don't look at addiction. It's a symptom. I don't judge it. I know that if you get to cause, you can release it. You know, hypnotherapy and addiction is showing a 75% in my practice with a 4-day protocol, 75% relapse recovery. So I know. And a good program, a $100,000 program or $80,000 30-day program is 13% if it's really good, because they're not
Hmm.
getting to cause. You're not, you
Yeah.
have to get to these wounds, these echoes.
Hmm.
So, and teach new subconscious behavior. So I completely shifted my game, and I understood that you have to go with where your passion is and your experience is. And when I can sit across from someone who's struggling with alcohol and drug, and I get it, or a parent or a daughter of someone who's struggling, and I can tell them.
You broke up right there. Let's catch it. But the I'm going to go talk a little bit because she's frozen up on the video, guys, and she's going to come back in just a second. Now, I don't know if you heard me, but you broke up right there when you said, I could tell them, and then we went out for quite maybe 10, 15 seconds there.
Okay.
So you could tell them what? What were you saying?
Mm-hmm. When I can tell them that there's hope, because people are looking for hope and freedom. And when I can tell them there is hope, because I know I've seen it, when you get past that, when you disconnect yourself from the past and free yourself up, it's possible to stay clean and sober. It's hard to do that when you feel like you're worthless. So
Yeah,
I
that's
really
true.
moved into this model of helping people move through addiction. And it's because I believe in it, and I just started following my own path, my own why. And I really believe that that's why I got into hypnotherapy, so I can be a change agent in the way we treat addiction in this country.
You know, I'm totally with you on that. You and I have not rehearsed this next point,
No.
but I worked in addiction for many years. I wrote a book called Deep Recovery. And one of the things that I was complaining about, because I worked so intimately with recovery for a long period of time. And what happened is the people would go into these meetings and everybody runs everybody down.
Yeah.
You know, you're nothing but an alcoholic, and until you get that straight.
Yeah.
And so if they've had a bad experience in their childhood, they're just in a groove of reminding themselves about how terrible they are. And to me, it was like, I don't say that to people. I don't say that. Yeah, you've had a problem, but here's what you're doing well. Here's how you can come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I was always reframing that intuitively. That's a long time ago. I wrote the book back in 92, so it's a long time ago. But
Oh, I can't wait to read it.
well, the issue there is that I'm very much against people thinking reductionistically, because labels deny the complexity of the underlying issue. It's really, they deny the transpersonal portion of it. They're like, okay, this is your label. This is who you are. And that happens in drug addiction. It happens in psychopharmacology land, because the
Absolutely.
entire psychiatric diagnostic coding book is really a fashion show, a dance card. You know, how you look is who you are, and that's a diagnosis 100% until you get that right. It's like the negativity associated with substance abuse. It's the reason people don't want to see a psychiatrist, because they get some label from an outdated, that book is 20 years out of date, because they're not dealing with the underlying biology, the underlying psychology of it. They're just like, okay, here's your label. I'm going to throw some meds out, talk to you later. So yeah, I'm opinionated about that. I actually I had a guy interview me the other day, and I cursed in the interview. I don't usually curse, you know, I don't curse anyway. I mean, I'm not a cursing guy, but I got
I am.
this.
It's the ER trauma nurse in me, but but I feel very strongly about this. And I have, you know, a sister that's been in AA and felt the program for 25 years, clean and sober. But I don't have a problem with AA, but it is negative programming. If you know what the subconscious mind is doing, you know, when you tell people they're powerless and it's just a matter of time before they relapse, That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you have to get to cause. They're just dealing with symptom. The thing I like about AA is the connectivity, the commonality.
Yeah.
So when you find that in a different supportive way, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So so the work that I do with addiction is really on all aspects of it, and clearing that and understanding what the really emotions and beliefs and events have to be dealt with cause. And when you do that, it's amazing. In 4 days, in and out of meditation with my clients, getting all aspects of it. When they, at the end of those 4 days, say, you know what, it's incredible, but I feel free. And that's why I do the work. That's why I do the intensive work. And that's why I'm moving on to this path of help people deal with addiction in another way.
Well, now let me ask you this question, because
Yeah.
4 days
Yeah.
is a lot of hours.
Yes.
Is that 4 hours
No.
or is it 4 full days? So you
It's-
work like Thursday through Sunday? How does all that work?
It depends. I have people who come out of, from out of all over the country that come in on like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday. If they need to do it in 3 days, I'll collapse it. Usually I do 4 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours, and then 4 hours, depending on their schedule. Some people do during the week. Many of the people are professionals and can't leave work for a long period of time. They don't want people to know they can't leave for a 30-day program. That's not really that successful anyway.
Yeah.
So when they come in, they're in and out. So I do all aspects. I'm an NLP practitioner. I have lots of different modalities that I use.
NLP, tell people what it is. I know what it is.
Yes, sorry. Neuro-linguistic programming. And it's the concept that your brain grabs a hold of information and history from different parts of your brain. So when you change it, for instance, if someone is fear-based, it's very interesting. I have them see fear in front of them, or see a block, that big BUT, that big butt in front of them. And your listeners could do that. Don't do it while you're driving. But imagine, imagine fear in front of you, or that block. Look at what it looks like, what its color is, what size is it. And when you close your eyes and take a deep breath, change the color, change the shape, change the size. And when you do that, it diminishes in your mind, and you cannot grab a hold of it in the same way. Your mind can't do it. And when you learn tricks like that, how to mind hack and release fear, you release anxiety, you release urges, you can surf that urge, and you can just let it go. And that's the kind of work that I do.
You're talking the language, girl. You're there.
I know.
It works if you work it.
I love it. And when people believe that they can do it, my bridge method, which is build belief, release and recover. It's a whole protocol that I do with the acronym of bridge to living free. When you do that, and you do it and research shows that when you go in and out of meditation in 4 days, you actually download new genomes. People have done it, taken blood before and after a 4-day thing, and it's incredible.
No, that's
literally
true.
Change your body.
Yeah, we've had a number of guests that have talked about that. It's pretty doggone interesting. So, and by the way, folks, listeners, Renee is going to give us a book that we can give away here. So there's going to be a drawing, and that's going to be on the show notes. So if you're listening to this, the show notes are up and alive at episode 145, corebrainjournal.com/145. We make it really easy to get to. So let's close a little bit with your book, since we're on that. I mean, I think it's absolutely relevant. And, your butt is not anatomical. Your butt actually has something to do with, as I was thinking about it earlier, denial. So what happens is how big is your butt is where do you hit the wall?
Yeah.
And the wall is a denial wall. Like, these things that happen to me aren't significant. I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to deal with whatever. And I'm just going to keep, and a little bit, this is where recovery comes a little bit. I'm going to fake it till you make it. But, that's not my policy. I mean, I would challenge that. I mean, we're not into faking it. We're into being, because, there are certain aphorisms that, I always like the phrase, if you blow it, you eat it. I like that one. But fake it till you make it is not one of my favorite phrases.
Well, if you know anything about the neuroplasticity and the neuroscience, when you identify how you're feeling, when you identify it, it changes the part of your brain that grabs a hold of the information, and it dilutes the emotional effect. So it's really important to identify how you're feeling. The big butt can be a false belief, but it's definitely something that's blocking you, and it's held in the subconscious mind. So it could be, I want a new job, but I'm not smart enough, or I'm not going to be able to do that. It's really important. And I'm going to suggest to people, and I have this in the first chapter. Every chapter has a, a skill at the end, a little thing that you can do to help you gain
Good,
awareness
good.
and to release. But write down your goal, what you want, something you really want in your life. Write it down, take a breath, and then now say it again to yourself and put the word but after it and listen to what comes after it, because that's what's blocking you from getting it in the first place. And that's the goal. If you hear, because I'm not stupid, or I'm not educated, or I can't lose weight because I'm X, Y, and Z, listen to that. That's what's blocking you. When you get to that source and identify it, it starts changing, and it's pretty remarkable.
So what you're recommending to our listeners is they have to embrace the butt.
You absolutely love the butt.
I think I got it.
I've never said that before. It's kind of funny, actually. Yes, embrace it, because when you identify it, then you could start healing it. If it's deep in the subconscious mind, in that lower surface, you cannot heal it. You must look at it. It does not help to push things down and aside, and that's the only thing we're taught to do. This book is designed, How Big Is Your Butt, is designed to help people learn some skills to get in the driver's seat to manage the subconscious mind. And when you look at it and you release it and allow emotion, when you feel safe enough to do that, then your life opens up and you practice happy and you create this life that you want.
Fantastic. You're embracing the reality of the way they think, which is all about mindset. Okay, your mind is set a certain way, and unless you actually recognize the set, you can't do anything about it, because it's not in reality. You can't see it. It's a reality in your mind, but it's not a visible reality, which argues against the whole thing of the DSM-5 diagnostic coding system anyway, because no one would ever recognize it, so you can't put a label on it. So
No.
you called it the butt. I mean, I think we can get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to do it in a subconscious state. When you go round and round and round in your conscious mind, and when you know your story backward and forward, it's not going to help you heal.
Yeah.
You got to get to the heart, and you got to drop into that and feel safe enough to feel that.
Very interesting point. Now, in closing, we're winding down here a little bit, but let's talk about your other book, Practice Happy.
Yeah.
So could you give us a little bit of an idea what that book is about?
So How Big Is Your Butt? Actually, Practice Happy is a philosophy within How Big Is Your Butt.
Oh, it is. Okay. I mean, yeah. I didn't understand. Okay.
It's the happiness is not going to come and sit in your lap. You got to go chase it. It's around the corner. You stopped your car because you didn't feel safe and you're not getting your destination. You got to get the car going. You got to get in the subconscious mind and start driving towards it. And when you start doing that and flip negativity, understand how your brain's working to keep you safe. When you flip that around, you start changing your neurons, you practice happy, and before you know it, 3 to 4 weeks, you've changed your mindset of awareness and you start just living happier.
So what's really fun about you, Renee, is you're deep and you're a regular woman. Oh. You got it, but you got actionable terms. You're not just throwing out. I mean, some of the words are not in ordinary vocabulary. That's why we clarify them a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that every time you come back, every time you make a point of clarification, which is really quite rewarding and interesting, is you really talk about it from a point of view of, hey, this is what you do. This is how it works, as opposed to, getting lost in mumbo jumbo. So it's really, really good.
You'll never hear me speak or do a presentation without giving you some action items. I think that's my gift. I think that's my calling, is to help people understand it from a really practical platter, because I mainstream this. I could talk hypnotherapy to, mindset people or, yoga people, but I talk to the mainstream because that's what I'm supposed to be doing on this earth. I'm supposed to help people understand that you can get into that subconscious mind. You can make changes.
Well, we're cut from the same cloth in that regard. I mean, I've talked to professionals for 20 years, but I think what happens, the change is going to come from the public really fully understanding what's going on and just talking to them straightforward like you do. You do a great job of it. And
thanks.
We really appreciate it. So let's remind people how they can get in touch with you. So what's the website that you would like people to come to hook up with you?
So what I want to send them to is practicehappynow.com. And on there is a couple chapters of the book if they're interested. But also there's 2 free meditations. And I'd really like to invite them to go and download those meditations. One is Higher Self. When you go into meditation and you see and meet the higher version of yourself, you start hearing that voice every day, then you'll start making changes and those butts get very smaller. And the other one is for sleep. I have a whole chapter in the book about sleep, because you cannot make changes and live an effective, full life if you're not sleeping. And so you have to do that. So I have a sleep meditation that just takes somebody down into a natural brainwave. And we have to sleep, and we have to sleep without medication. I help a lot of people get off Ambien and such. So sleep and listen to your higher self, and life gets a lot easier. Practice happy every day.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, we're with you on Ambien. Yeah, we don't use it because so many bad things happen on Ambien.
Mm-hmm.
And it is addictive. I mean, you basically can't stop it. You have to figure out how to break down and get off of it. And the whole neurotransmitter system gets mucked up behind it. So thank you for saying those helpful things. And they're complimentary. You just got them sitting out there. So that's at practicehappynow.com.
Yep.
Hey, that's really hard to spell. I don't think I'm going to get that right.
I have the misspellings on the thing too. And if you want to know more about hypnosis, Renee Brent, hypnosis.com is my other my practice website. So, and I'd love to hear from listeners or anyone. So just send me an email. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Renee Britt. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on board. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you.
If you have something else that hits, just let us know. We'll have you on again.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll talk about addiction next time.
Sounds good. We can do it. All right. Have a good one.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Core Brain Journal. We're working every day behind the scenes to bring you reports that connect research benches with those street trenches. Here we share the complexity of mind science because, as you know, details really do matter. One of the most pervasive, misunderstood challenges is how commonplace medications, like those written for ADHD, are used so regularly without clear guidelines. If you think you'd like more specifics, take a minute to download my 2-page PDF packed with video links and references on the absolute essentials of how to start ADHD medications. They're easily available at corebrainjournal.com/start. Thanks for listening. Do connect and stay tuned. Together we can make a difference.